I'm Rod Slasher Breslau, and I'm here with Chet Faliszek, who is guy that runs Counter-Strike Global Offensive.
No, I'm the writer.
Just the writer.
Just the writer. And stuff.
And a bunch of other stuff. And he happens to work on Counter-Strike, and the guy that I go to for all my info, at least. I want to know about Counter-Strike. You announced the price for it and the release date.
$14.99, August 21st.
So $14.99, that is going to be the same price as a DLC for many AAA title games, and lower than nearly any kind of big releases, or even the smaller releases. You know, they're usually 20, so it's actually cheaper than that. Why make it $15?
So for us, originally, a lot of thought was about that we have these two communities on the PC side of it, CSS and 1.6, and we'd really like to kind of go back to them, make a game for them that they'd want to play, and not touch those games, not break those games, not do anything to them, not turn off the servers or whatever else someone might do to try to get people to move over, but simply make a game that was good enough that they wanted to play. And one of the barriers that'll stop someone from moving over to play is price. And so we wanted to make it a no-brainer price. And so we thought $14.99 seemed about right, and then also on the consoles it seems to fit about right. It's just getting people into play.
Why 15? Why not 20? Or why not even 0 and make it free to play? Like anything, free to play would mean we would have to monetize in some other way, right? We're not a charity. And so thinking about Counter-Strike and what Counter-Strike's about, we were thinking this made sense. Free to play might make sense. Obviously that's something we're doing in the Dota world, and that really makes sense there. And you see a lot of those style of competitive games going that way. And so maybe Counter-Strike should go that way, but right now we're looking at it and thinking of kind of our constraints and goals of what we want to see out of the product, and it's not working out that way. And especially on the consoles, doing free-to-play is a problematic, right? And so we want to really make sure that, we see this all the time down on the floor. We're showing on the 360 and on the PS3, and you get all these guys for like, hey man, I played like this like crazy on the PC, through college, and they jump in and they 2 seconds in, they're playing it fine because they play FPSs on the consoles, and all their skill translates right to the new version. And so it just seems like a good thing to do there, and the free-to-play model doesn't really kind of breaks down there. How do you see it different than Dota 2? Because you did announce about a week ago that Dota 2 would be free-to-play, and then you could buy items in the store, and some more details to be announced. But why not go that same?
Well, from the very beginning, that's what those guys were thinking, right? That's what we're thinking of. This is how you monetize that game and not have this negative impact to it, right? So then they chose some things like making sure all the heroes are free, and doing things like that. And so, when we first thought of CS:GO, it was originally not thought to be that, right? And so our original goals weren't to do it that way.
And you think the console side does play a lot into it? It's not really feasible to do a free-to-play game.
That's one of it. I think we'd be comfortable saying there's a charge on this platform and it's free to play over here, because I think most people can understand that there's some shake it long enough and it all evens out. But that's just not what we're doing right now.
How has the whole beta process gone for the development of Counter-Strike, though? How integral has the community, both professional and the kind of casual side, been to?
Oh, it's been gigantic.
The game.
Right. The game would not be half as good as it's going to be if it wasn't for the community, or even more, maybe 70% as good. No, it's super great. Right? Some people look at it and go, oh my God, they're not giving it a shot or whatever, and there's always some friction there. But even internally, there's some people who can look at something not finished and have a hard time seeing the finished product, and there's some people who can look at the unfinished thing and understand the steps it takes there. And we're seeing that with the community as well, and that's not to fault anybody. That's not to say like, oh my God, you're not smart because you can't see that. It's just a weird thing, right? And so some people are used to seeing a polished product from us, and so the beta is not polished. It does not have the polish on it. It's rough. We put in things that are broken because you get the core in, and then you build on it. And internally, we do that all the time. And so this is the first time we've really done that on a game where we're just showing you the brokenness and then adjusting it. And that's how we work. We iterate. We throw ideas out there, and people are like, oh, hey, what about the tracers? Well, because we want to do this experiment with the tracers, and you can't do the experiment if you never put them in. We can always take them out, but to see how they work and how they
interrelate with everything. You have to put them in first and then play with them. And so there's a lot of things we put in the beta, tried, gotten feedback on, and it's been great.
How has it been to try to make happy the 1.6 crowd, the source crowd, and then also new users who have not played a Counter-Strike game or maybe an FPS game all at the same time? How have you been able to kind of balance all of that at once?
Well, so the first big thing we did was make sure that we're making Counter-Strike. And so we're not going to do something for one segment that was going to impact negatively others, right? So one of the biggest things we've added is skill-based matchmaking, because that just allows really good players to separate and be playing against other really good players. And you don't have this problem that you have in CSS now where, hey, I've been playing for 7 years and you just bought the game, you're going to jump in, and I'm going to own you because we're on the same server because nothing's looking at that. Well, we're saying, hey, you know what? You want to actually play against people of your same skill level, because it's not fun just to be owning noobs endlessly, right? You want to be able to play against people that are going to be challenging you, and those people want to, and the new people want to learn the game and get into it. So really the skill-based matchmaking will be a big part of it. And on the PC, not only is it going to be individuals, but also you'll be able to form clans or groups. So your Steam group will have an ELO attached to it. And so you can just form up and then go in and play against teams. We don't have that quite in yet, but that'll be coming soon.
This is the first time you've really implemented an ELO type system in the matchmaking of your multiplayer game.
Dota would have been the first. Or I guess, I don't know exactly when they started in versus us, but around then, yeah. I mean, it's been something we've been talking about. It's a little weird though, because if you think about it, Dota has one point of victory or loss, and that's the actual game. That's an extended period of time, and everybody plays the same value on that win or loss. Where in Counter-Strike, what we see is certain rounds, people don't mind losing, because they'll be doing maybe an econ round where they're not buying the rifles because they're just going to stick with pistols, save some money, buy a better weapon that time. That loss doesn't actually mean as much to them as the other rounds. What they're trying to do is win the whole match. And so then we look at, well, do we have a good enough structure around there to be basing our ELO off the match, and how do we do that? And so there's some little tweaking we're still doing there to figure that out.
Has that been a goal for a long time, to implement a matchmaking in multiplayer games, since you've been so perverse in multiplayer for so long?
Yeah, so actually in Left 4 Dead 2 we did an experiment behind the scenes and never told anybody, and we did skill-based matchmaking there and ended up having a hard time getting any piece of value that really let you determine skill. And there was a lot of factors in play on that, but a lot of it ended up becoming noise, where again, individual rounds didn't matter, full games were hard, unless you're telling people, hey, this full game matters, and you've got to do this, otherwise you're going to have a negative reaction in your ELO. But most of the people playing Left 4 Dead, simply, it's for fun, and it's not competitive. So they weren't making those same choices, and then it's more about, they would really much rather care socially, is somebody fun to play with, and are they having a good time? That makes a game last and stay better. So that was a weird one, and some interesting data we got from that. And so we took that over to Counter-Strike when we were looking at how to do the ELO there, and making sure that there was actual value put on what they were winning or losing, because that seemed to have really helped.
Do you find it more difficult to do this for an FPS game than a Dota or maybe an RTS game?
I don't think it's the FPS versus RTS. I think it's the Dota has no other unit of victory besides the game itself, where having those other units of victory make people make different choices, and that's where the complication comes in.
So focusing more on the PC side, I think one of the big things is the 1.6 community, and a little bit less so the more source community of how they want this game to be. Do you listen to either of one side more?
I mean, we listen to both, and we really try to take a look at what we think was successful. It's weird because in 1.6, some stuff that people look at were actually bugs that we just never fixed, and they became the way they played it, and they'd been playing for so many years that that's the normal, and anything that deviates from that is wrong. And so we've been trying to do a job of I was gonna say good job. I don't know if we're doing a good job or not on it yet. We're just trying, right? It's a beta for us even on this, as we're learning. Is you want to make sure that it's not just because it's different that it's wrong, but it's actually wrong because it's wrong. Because then there's some players that will just jump in, and if it's not exactly what they did, because they've invested a lot of time in learning 1.6, and it's like if you'd been doing 3-point shots in basketball for 10 years and all of a sudden they move the 3-point line out by 2 feet, that's going to mess you up. So that's fair enough. That's like I agree with their problems with that, right? Fair enough. That's different, and 1.6 will always be there for you. We're not taking away. But as we're making our changes, some of the players just need to, I think, adjust a little bit and see how does that work out. Is this a good change or a bad change? Don't look at it as just different. And again, some of the changes have been bad changes, and we've gone back. We've changed some things up based on their feedback and our agreement that was a bad change.
With some of those maybe quote-unquote bugs that happened in 1.6 that were never fixed, it was almost like strafe jumping in Quake wasn't really intended by Carmack when he really put it in. Do you foresee some of those things kind of the community and the players made a new element of gameplay which turned a bug into a feature?
Yeah, it's funny. So as soon as we released the very first beta in December of CSGO, there was a bug where if you went back and forth really quickly while you went forward, you kind of waddled, you went a little faster. And probably the first person to do that, it had to be like 6 o'clock at night. By midnight, every server you went on, everyone waddled. And like the skill transfer was so quick and so like, okay, this is how it goes. And it's like, we fixed that because that was weird.
But you actually thought it was weird enough to fix instead of leaving it just to be that way.
Exactly.
So you would rather fix that? Is there any time when
something like that? It's hard to make a blanket statement about that because some things work pretty well and some things are just too odd to really want to keep.
And I've been able to talk to a lot of Counter-Strike 1.6 players and Source players, both of which are playing Global Offensive right now. And you mentioned the engine. It almost seems like a lot of people do bring up the Source engine and then the Portal 2 modified Source engine, which is running Go. Does make things a lot different and maybe a little bit weirder than it was back in the OpenGL days, which was running on 1.6. Do you feel like the Source engine and Direct 3D and the way things go has been able to give the same type of feeling in a competitive FPS, or has it made it a lot more difficult, maybe?
It's just different, right? And it's neither better nor worse, it's just different. There's just a little bit of a different feel to it. I mean, if you play a Source game or an Unreal game, I could tell by feel which one's which. And it's not that I dislike or like one or the other, they just all feel different. And everybody's feels different, right? If I go play Battlefield 3, it's different than if I go play Modern Warfare. And so it's just different. And I mean, we accept it, that's fine.
Some of those players say that the engine has made some of the things that they've liked so much in 1.6, and then even some of the Source guys too, made it harder to do in Go. So some of the biggest things they were mentioning were the recoil, which seems to go back and forth with the beta test, but it hasn't still found its place.
I think a couple weeks ago, we got really close. And so often, this is the other weird thing with the beta, so you never want to, when you're adjusting something, you never want to try to adjust it just too close. It's often good to start at a really far distance and then bring it back because it helps you decide which way to go. I liken it to, I had this awesome uncle who could, back in the 70s, navigate by the stars, right? And he would go across and go to Canada, it was Lake Erie. He never shoot for his target because then if he didn't find it, he wasn't sure to go left or right. But he'd go way to the left, or I'm sure he's west, not left, or port, excuse me. And then he would know, hey, if I went way to the left, then I have to go back to the starboard side to find the port, right? And so we kind of do that same kind of idea. You always want to go really far, make the delta big enough that you can understand what the difference is, and then head back to it. And so recoil is one of those things where we kind of went from one side, and now we're pretty close. And the feedback we're seeing in the forums is that the recent updates have been pretty close.
Do you think that's one of those things that will eventually be completely set, or is that something that'll be patched maybe indefinitely?
I think if there's a reason to keep playing with it, we will. So the August 21st date isn't the end of development. It's just a date where everyone will be able to get it. The barrier to entry will not be me giving you out a beta key, right? It'll be you decided to put down $14.99. And so we'll continue to work on the game after that.
I think the other thing besides recoil was sound, and that some were saying that directional sound is not.
Oh, they're going to be excited.
The best right now.
Oh, it's going to be better than ever. I don't know if that patch is going out this week or not, but you will have more control over your sound, how it works, and the feedback you get than ever before, and it'll be dead on.
Do you feel like there's any regret of not supporting the Counter-Strike community, maybe way back in the day when it was first starting to get off the ground?
Well, I mean, honestly, the 1.6 community in particular is so strong and vibrant on their own. I don't know how we could have made it better. What sprang up around there and the infrastructure, especially like in the Nordic nations and Germany, and is just awesome. So it'd be hard to have thought we could have done that better. And I still think that now, of when we talk about CS:GO, us doing stuff is a lot less interesting than helping support the community to do their thing, because they're going to be really smart about what they do. They're going to be really smart about the choices they make, the tournaments they choose to be in, the matches they're playing, and just making sure we're making our best game and putting it out there and then letting them make those decisions will always be better than us trying to go in there and decide how things should work.
So watching games has almost become as big as playing games
Yes.
now. And I mean, you guys were kind of in the very beginning with HLTV many years ago, a decade ago, and then Source TV. But now that's kind of exploded more so, and you have companies like Twitch who do streaming specifically about games. I know you're developing the Dota TV client, and you have said before you want to bring those same exact features over to the Counter-Strike. So I want to know a little bit more details about that, but the bigger thing to me is watching FPS games is almost the hardest to do of any of the different genres of games, the RTS, MOBA, fighting games. Because the first-person shooters, there's 10 different screens you have to watch, and then to kind of pinpoint what is going on at one time, it's always been very difficult. Have you thought about how to spectate FPS as different than other games?
That's one of the things that Source TV originally did, right? It delayed the transmission, because what it did was it was following along and deciding, hey, wait, this happens here. Let's go back in time and figure the right camera angle for that, and let's make that a cool shot, right? And so that's why they need to go watch headshots and stuff like that. So bringing over something like that and making it watchable would be really cool. One of the cool things about, I think, people watching games now is that there's so many people playing games, and they have such understanding of the language of what's happening, that it makes it viable now, that it makes it interesting. That's something as players have grown and as the audience has expanded, that's a more viable option now for people who just do sit that. In the Dota room, there's a big monitor right by their door that just is constantly playing Dota games. Left 4 Dead used to have a way to view matches, and then we used to just watch random matches all the time. Problem with that, memory and a bunch of stuff. Wish we could get that back in. It's not. But that was really cool, and I think that's the cool thing, right? I mean, that's something you can relate to if you're playing those games and you understand what's going on. You understand the drama that's happening, and that makes it interesting.
And I think lastly, and I mean, I already feel like I know the answer, but people want me to ask anyway, since this is now Global Offensive, and this will be out soon, and this is not Counter-Strike 2, is there any talk or discussion about how Counter-Strike 2 would come or will come, or
we focus on this. Until it's out, we focus on this. When I mean, we've got a blackboard, whiteboard with some stuff for DLC. Other than that, there's not even working on that yet, right? And we like to just go out, we see how people react, we see what we need to do, what improvements we need to make, what's going to be the next thing for it, and then go from there.
Will we have hats?
You can have a hat if you want. I'd cover that hair up.
All right, thank you, Chet.
Thank you.